So good morning, everyone. I'll begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting. I pay my respects to the elders past and present and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. On behalf of APSAC and our conference partners, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you today. I'm confident that this will turn out to be a very engaging and valuable conference. I extend a warm welcome to our guests from overseas and from interstate. Welcome to Victoria and to Melbourne. In APSAC, we place great importance on our legislated corruption prevention and education function. And that's why we're particularly delighted to continue the APSAC tradition by hosting this long-standing and respected national conference. The positive response by you, demonstrated by your attendance and by the high calibre of people who've registered to attend and speak on corruption issues, is a testament to how seriously we all take corruption prevention. I'm reminded of the words of Theodore Roosevelt, who said, of course, we all deplore corruption, but we must war against it and we must stamp it out. And I'm sure that's why you're all here today, to search for better solutions to addressing the corruption issues within our institutions. We're proud to offer today and tomorrow an impressive and rich program from local, interstate and international leaders in corruption prevention and integrity. The conference theme, Identifying Challenges, Finding Solutions, and the programs includes a broad range of presentations, real case studies and thoughtful leadership and expert opinion on that theme. So I take this opportunity to thank our partners in Queensland Crime and Corruption Commission, the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption, the West Australian Corruption and Crime Commission, the South Australian Independent Commission Against Corruption, the Tasmanian Integrity Commission, the New South Wales Law Enforcement Conduct Commission and the Federal Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity for their input and help in developing the program for this conference. I'd like to also take the opportunity in advance to thank our keynote speakers, some of whom have flown internationally to be present, to thank all of our concurrent session presenters and facilitators, yesterday's workshop facilitators and the Master of Ceremonies, Ms Jill Callister, who will be taking to the lectern shortly. Now, by bringing together leaders from anti-corruption and integrity agencies, the public sector, academia and our international experts and elsewhere, we can share knowledge and experience and learnings. So I'm delighted that you chose to attend the conference and continue the vital work we all play to build our public sector's resilience to corruption and prevention. Now, all of you will no doubt have seen there are many opportunities for corruption and misconduct in our community. And sadly, when there is corruption, the community is adversely affected in a variety of ways. Corruption is not a victimless crime. It degrades the administration of our public service. It adversely impacts on the good reputation of the public sector. It erodes the confidence that Australians have in the public sector, and it diverts time and resources that are needed to deliver essential services. Too often we see examples from public sector senior leaders that are resistant to the possibility of corruption in their organisations, or upon discovering it, are unwilling to publicly acknowledge it and expose it and apply misguided thinking like the ends justify the means, I've got the outcome that I wanted, this meets the KPIs that we've set, and so adherence to process becomes a secondary or a non-issue. I'm particularly proud of the fact that yesterday the commissioners from all of the corruption commissions that I've just mentioned reached agreement and issued a joint communique some of you will have had an opportunity to view it already, but I expect over the next couple of days it will get some public attention. The significance of it is this: it shows that no matter what part of Australia we're concerned with, we have the same issues. Corruption is not governed by state borders or institutional parameters. We are dealing with some constants in the human condition, which appears everywhere. And the joint communiqué, which addresses the questions of behaviour, which contributes to corruption within organisations, and also addresses briefly the reasons why that behaviour occurs, is testimony to the fact that all of the commissioners encounter the same experiences. And so we must recognise that we are not talking about individual institutions, individual organisations. We are dealing with an Australia-wide issue, and we must recognise that the organisational changes have got to come in every one of those institutions. So I look forward to the final plenary session, in which we will be discussing that joint communiqué, the behaviours we've identified, and some of the reasons why that behaviour occurs. So I welcome you again to the APSAC conference, and I encourage you all to learn, share, and most importantly, maintain your collective commitment and passion to preventing public sector corruption. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Chief Justice, Anne Ferguson, to open the conference. Chief Justice Ferguson was appointed as the 12th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Victoria in October 2017. Her Honour attended Monash University, where she finished top of her year and was awarded the Chief Justice's Supreme Court Prize and the Floss Gregg Memorial Prize. The Chief Justice was awarded a Commonwealth Scholarship to study at the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom, where she obtained a PhD in law with a doctoral thesis on unfair contracts. In 2005, Her Honour became a partner at Allens Arthur Robinson, now Allens Linklaters, specialising in general commercial litigation and insolvency. While a partner, she served as Honorary Secretary to the Council of Legal Education, when it was the body that determined the requirements for admission to practice and approved law courses. The Chief Justice was appointed a Judge of the Trial Division of the Supreme Court in 2010 and to the Court of Appeal in 2014. And it gives me very great pleasure to be able to invite the Chief Justice to speak today as a colleague with whom I worked for 3 years on the Court of Appeal. Her Honour is keenly interested in the transparency and accountability of public institutions. She has presided on a number of high-profile matters, including the Lawyer X proceedings, which led to the establishment of the Royal Commission into the management of police informants. The Chief Justice is also the Chair of the Judicial College of Victoria, the Courts Council, and the Judicial Commission of Victoria. And I regret, and the Chief Justice has confirmed to me a short time ago, those responsibilities sadly intrude into her ability to sit as often as she would like. And that's a loss to Victoria, because indeed Her Honour is a fine jurist. So would you all join with me in welcoming the Chief Justice?
Good morning. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders who may be present. Thank you, Commissioner Redlich, for your warm introduction. It is a pleasure to be here this morning to open the 7th Biennial Australian Public Sector Anti-Corruption Conference and to welcome all of you as delegates. I'd like to thank and commend APSAC and its partners for organising the conference. I understand that this is the first time that the conference is being held in Victoria and hosted by APSAC. The hosting of the conference in Victoria is a testament to the excellence of APSAC's work under Commissioner Redlick's leadership and its unwavering commitment to public integrity and anti-corruption. Strong public institutions are the bedrock of our democracy. Public institutions must have and be seen to have integrity. If the community cannot rely on public institutions to be robust, fair, impartial, transparent and free from corruption, community confidence in those institutions will collapse. In recent years, the community's trust in public institutions has been shaken. We've seen royal commissions, news stories and heated public debate about the state of our public institutions. So it is imperative that as a community, we directly address any behaviours or practices that fall below the standard required. That's the only way to build and maintain trust. The courts play a unique role with respect to trust and integrity. They are the final umpire, the ultimate decision maker for matters involving integrity or corruption which attract legal penalties or for which legal recourse is available. The judges who deal with those matters, indeed with all matters, take oaths to discharge the duties of their office according to law and to the best of their knowledge and ability, without fear, favour or affection. I have taken that oath 3 times. But judges are not always immune from the temptations that corruption can present. I recall a few years ago when I was travelling in the Northern Territory, I was talking to a young couple from overseas who were on their honeymoon. They asked me what I did for work. It turned out that their parents were both judges. They asked me, quite matter-of-factly, how I dealt with bribery and ensured my personal safety. It's a few years ago and I was taken aback. But to them, it was a natural and obvious question to ask a judge. I didn't know quite how to respond because it wasn't something that I was confronted with day in, day out. But I know it's not the case in other parts of the world. Sometimes the best way to understand the importance of something is to imagine a world without it. That day in the Northern Territory, I saw what a world without integrity and standards against corruption looked like. That's one of the reasons why I am here today. When I was invited to speak to you, I immediately said yes. It was a gut reaction, an immediate instinct. First, it's easy to take the importance of integrity for granted and fall into the trap of thinking that corruption does not exist in Australia, that it's not something that affects us as we go about our work. But as you are all acutely aware, a culture of integrity is only built and corruption is only kept in check through constant vigilance and the strength of our systems of accountability. The second reason for being here is that people find concepts of integrity and corruption difficult to relate to when it's not their bread and butter every day. So for some, corruption is a huge word. It can sound accusatory to some. It can also sound disproportionate to others, those people who see corruption as Watergate rather than something less. It's often the small things, as you know, that we cannot see that can grow and create a culture where integrity is no longer front of mind, fostering an environment for fraud and corruption to take hold. I'm interested to know how to motivate people to take the issue seriously. How do we effect real cultural change and take policies off the shelf and into practice? It's not enough to have policies and systems in place if no one knows about them, or people refuse to think that they apply to them, or if their managers and leaders ignore or flout them. The courts now have an Integrity at Work program. Court Services Victoria, which is an independent statutory body, provides services and facilities to Victoria's courts and other bodies. And it has developed a program to help people understand what integrity means and to shape and create a workplace culture of high ethical and professional standards. As Chair of the Courts Council, which governs Court Services Victoria, I was pleased to support the introduction of that program. I see it as part of my role as the Chief Justice of Victoria and a workplace leader to set an example for many people who work in or otherwise support Victorian courts and tribunals. You all have a critical role in creating a culture where people ask why. A culture where people look deeper, make their own inquiries, where they keep their eyes and ears open, and they question, question, question. A culture where people feel safe enough to report improper conduct. The third reason why I'm here is because I am a passionate advocate for wellbeing in general and wellbeing in the workplace in particular. We often talk about the need to create healthy and safe workplaces, but they don't create themselves. And it doesn't take much for people to disengage from their roles if they feel that their workplace lacks integrity, or if they feel vulnerable or powerless in the face of corrupt practices. Many of you attending this conference will know what that looks like. It can happen within a team, or it can impact an entire organisation, undermining its standing in the community, eroding trust at every level, and making people want to leave. Going to work each day in an environment like this can be a very isolating and negative experience. A healthy workplace has sound corporate governance, education, awareness and support programs, accountable, open and transparent practices, and strong leadership. A safe workplace has people who value honesty, use their power responsibly, and report improper conduct and strive to earn and sustain trust. Healthy workplaces foster staff wellbeing. This leads to better outcomes for individuals and organisations. When I look out at this room, I see delegates from a wide range of backgrounds, including government, not-for-profit, and academia. Some of you have come from overseas. It is inspiring and reassuring to see so many of you here. Your presence gives me confidence for the future of our public institutions. You'll hear from a range of speakers who will focus on preventing, exposing, and responding to corrupt conduct and risks in public institutions. You will attend plenary sessions, discussion panels, and workshops that focus on research, trends, case studies, and new methods for preventing, investigating, and exposing corruption. This will be an invaluable opportunity to hear from leaders in their field. But in my experience, the conversation you strike up with someone after a session can prove as valuable as the session itself. So make the most of those opportunities. I hope that you find the conference enriching and thought-provoking. The work each and every one of you are doing matters. Even the things that might at first seem small contribute to maintaining our democracy. I encourage you to keep that in mind over the next 2 days. I'd now like to welcome the Conference Master of Ceremonies to the lectern, Professor Jill Callister. Professor Callister is the Associate Dean at the Australian and New Zealand School of Governance and 2019 Public Service Medal recipient. She has dedicated her career to improving public policy and service delivery. From 2015 to 18, she served as Secretary of the Victorian Department of Education and Training, and prior to this was the Secretary of the Victorian Department of Human Services from 2009 to 2014, where she led policy, legislative and service delivery reform. Ms Callister is the most recent past president of the Institute of Public Administration Australia Victoria, and her leadership in public policy was recognised in 2013 when she was named in the Australian Financial Review's 100 Women of Influence and received a Sir James Wolfenson Public Service Scholarship to attend Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. In October 2014, she was awarded the IPAA National Fellowship Award and a Monash University Fellowship, and in 2017 named as one of the top 50 women in the Victorian Public Service. Thank you, and please join me in welcoming Ms Callister.
Thank you so much, Your Honour, for such a generous welcome. And can I echo Her Honour and Commissioner Redlick's welcome to all of you. Welcome to Melbourne, where we have some beautiful weather for you for a change. Can I also start by acknowledging that we are on the land of the traditional custodians, the people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present, and to any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who've joined us from other parts of Australia. There's a quote, excuse me, there's a quote sometimes attributed to C.S. Lewis, which is, "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." And it's a salutary quote for public servants to think about. In my view, the issues of public trust, of acting with integrity, of preventing corruption, of building ethical cultures, is one of the most important issues facing everybody in the public sector today. As Her Honour pointed out, there are issues of both real and perceived lack of trust in public institutions, and everybody in the public sector plays a role in helping to restore trust. In my view, this is one of the top 3 issues for everyone in the public sector, and particularly public sector leaders. It's not just something for that part of your organisation that works out the rules and makes sure people are following them. It's how we behave each and every day, and I think Her Honour gave very wise words about that issue of culture. My own experience of taking on a role leading a government department that was shown to have had deep and systemic corruption, misconduct, maladministration, my experience in having to restore public trust, in having to rebuild integrity architecture, in having to build a culture of integrity, has shown me things in my public leadership roles that I didn't necessarily fully understand before. So I use my role now at ANZOG to work across Australia and New Zealand with public servants to help apply the lessons that we get from the literature and the academics, many of whom you're going to hear from today, our guest speakers, our keynote speakers, and then in our concurrent sessions. The most important thing is how you apply this in day-to-day work, and how you apply it in a way that prevents you having to go through a corruption scandal, which does terrible damage to our departments, to our reputation, to our staff, to our morale, to our culture, and to our ability to get the work of government done. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity. I think this conference will be illuminating. Many of you are here because you already care about this issue, but you will learn more about how to go back into your workplace and help build it into one of those top 3 things that everybody is thinking about it. I encourage you to tweet using the hashtag APSAC19 and to download the conference app so that you can use that as well.